Hello to everybody, and thank you for joining this Zyzel webinar today. My name is Jukka Vesa. I am the sales engineer for the Nordic region, and topic of today is our cloud-based services, or our cloud-based networking services called Nebula, and especially how it will benefit you in the education market and what features are there that are very much so used in schools. So we will have a Q&A session at the end, but if you have any questions during the presentation, please raise them in the questions or the chat section of the webinar. So we will just read them, and I will answer them at the end as best I can. Okay. So without further ado, let's move onwards. So hassle-free network management cloud-based called Zyzel Nebula. And the idea behind Nebula is to give you guys a lot of services that you would not have with standalone equipment, ease of installation and ease of management. And when we drill into more specifics and start off with the setup itself, is done as easy as possible, meaning that there is no local configuration required on the devices themselves. So you just do the configuration once at the Nebula Control Center, and then you install the devices either by scanning a QR code with your mobile phone and just adding them to that site, and then the device already knows which configuration it should download from the cloud when it gets online. So basically you do not need to even unbox the devices before installation, and you just scan all the devices and add them to that specific site, and then you go to the location and plug them in, and they will already know that which configuration files to download from the cloud. Up and running in minutes, meaning that once the devices are plugged in, they will only download the latest firmware from the cloud and the configuration reboot and start working as a part of that site. So of course, depending a bit on the download time for the firmware, which is always dependent on the ISP connection, it usually takes up to 2 to 5 minutes for the device to start working and be a part of that network. No additional hardware or software needed, not on your PC or not on site. So you do not need any cloud keys or anything that would be installed on site for your devices to connect to Nebula Control Center. Each and every device has a built-in reporting and management tool to connect to Nebula Control Center. Also, you do not need any additional software on your PC for management, and it's a browser-based management supporting all major browsers and operating systems. And since it is a cloud-based service, you are able to access it from anywhere where you have an internet connection, and that's not a problem in the Nordics that we have. We always have some sort of a connection available to us. I would also like to mention that you are able to limit the connection and secure it quite a lot, meaning that we do support two-factor authentication for Nebula Control Center via Google Authenticator. So if somebody gets a hold of your credentials, they can't just simply log in and do whatever they please. They would also need your mobile phone and your authenticator to achieve the login. And you can also limit the IP addresses where you can log into those organizations and sites. So you can even furthermore limit that. For example, you can only access from your office to that certain organization if you wish to. We also do have a mobile application available, you can do pretty much with it. It's available for iOS and Android, and you can configure your Wi-Fi on the location with it, and it also gives you alerting if something goes wrong, and basic monitoring functions that you can see what's happening on each site, and you don't need to open up your laptop for it or open up a mobile browser for it. It's also a really handy installation tool for scanning the QR codes either in the boxes or the devices themselves, and then just adding them to the site. We also have an installer credentials available if the device is being installed by somebody who cannot really do the configuration, so it will limit them to only adding devices to the organization. We also give options for easy access. Also, already on AP level, we provide a customizable captive portal for guest authentication, which in the simplest form, you can just agree on terms and conditions and be on your merry way to internet, and also supports authentications from a Radius and Active Directory, or the built-in Nebula authentication service that is free of charge for you to use. So we give user management, user and device management on NCC with the built-in authentication server. We give guest isolation already on the AP level, in technical terms, intra-BSS and layer 2 isolation, which result to guests not seeing each other inside the network, which gives the local network a lot more security. So basically, if somebody gets inside your network, they are not able to hack the other devices or even see them for that matter. We are able to integrate with Radius and Active Directories, which is a very used function in schools. And after the June release, we will also support dynamic VLANing on Nebula equipment, which is an asked for function in this vertical. So you would basically need an only one SSID or a network name in the site. And then based on the AD account, which would have the virtual LAN ID set to it, the user will be directed to the correct network and will have the access to the correct resources. For example, students would be in another virtual LAN and teachers in another virtual LAN, in the simplest form I can put it. We also support cloud-based ADs. For example, if they are hosted in Azure, we do support that. So there is no need for a local AD server if you wish to use a hosted one. Wireless standards, we support smart mesh function. And mesh in its basic form just means a wireless link or a wireless extension of network for APs. What makes it smart is how you install it basically. So in mesh in its standard form, you usually need to do some configuration to set which AP is connected to which AP, meaning a root and a repeater AP chain. And how Nebula does it is that if an AP does not recognize that the LAN interface is up, it will start scanning a hidden beacon, which is being broadcasted by the other networks on that site if smart mesh is enabled. When and if it picks up this hidden beacon, it will be allowed to connect to Nebula Control Center via that hidden beacon. And if that AP is registered to NCC and if that AP is registered to the same site as that root AP it is connecting through, it will download the configuration and the latest firmware and start working as a part of that site. So basically you do not need to push a cable into that AP, not even a single time. So just plug it into power and wait a little bit and enjoy. VPA2 Enterprise Security, as mentioned earlier, we do support AD and radius integration, which is a mandatory for this vertical. We do support all the roaming features, so 802.1R, K, and B. So these are very used and very handy when you have a lot of clients roaming in an area where there are a lot of access points, like, for example, school hallways or auditoriums, etc. So basically they have seamless connection from one AP to the next when they walk around. We are able to schedule SSIDs, so we are able to shut down the student network for evenings, for example, so they cannot really access it from the schoolyard during the weekends or evenings, and then prevent the network abuse that way. We can also manage the bandwidth per client or per IP range, and also give by priority if we wish to, but in its most simplest form per client. So we can, for example, limit 10 megabytes per client for preventing that one client can't consume all the available bandwidth, and hence slowing others down. We do support client steering, especially with smart classroom mode that is in use for schools. So APs intelligently are able to share clients between each other, or used in, for example, in an auditorium environment where you might have hundreds of devices connected at the same time. So one AP will not get over-consumed by clients and then slowing everybody down. So APs are able to divide the load between them. From the switch point of view, we support intelligent PoE, which of course saves on power and saves on PoE budget, meaning that you can put a lot more devices in your PoE switch, because the switch only reserves the amount of power the device actually uses rather than the classification amount. So if we take our basic AP NAP102, for example, which is classified for 15.4 watts, and the actual consumption of that device is 3 to 5 watts, already meaning that if it would be in classification mode, the switch would reserve the amount of power actually used by 3 APs for one. PoE scheduling, we are able to schedule PoE ports as well, and hence save on power, so we can easily shut down cameras, APs, whatever, during weekends, during summer holidays, and we don't really need to go on site and unplug in power cables. Network protection, we support access lists, of course, VLAN configuration, loop guards, spanning trees, server guards, IGMP snooping. We also support advanced IGMP with rolling and port-based configuration. So you can do all sorts of multicast setup with Nebula equipment if you wish to. As an ease of configuration feature, we create all the switches are seen as one virtual stack in the site. So basically, are you doing troubleshooting or are you doing just configuration? It just eases that part a lot, since you can just select multiple ports at the same time and just do the configuration at once. If you have 10 switches, for example, you can select all the uplink ports at the same time or all the AP ports at the same time and do the adjustment you need. Over-the-air updates, automated. So you can easily put, for example, default updates on a Sunday, Monday night when there is nobody around the school. And if there are updates available, they will be run at that time. Or if you are in an environment which school seldomly is, that runs 24/7, you are able to schedule them up to 6 months in advance. And you can also do them tag-based, meaning that you can segment the school in different sections. For example, you can put half the APs in one group and half the APs in another group, or every second AP, so you will never basically run out of service at any given time. So these APs will update themselves 2 o'clock, and these APs will update themselves 3 o'clock, and half the APs will keep running during that update. Site-to-site VPNs made as simply as possible. So basically you just select a LAN network at that location which you want to share in that VPN topology. There are 2 methods that we support: a site-to-site full mesh, which each and every site is being connected directly to each other, and a hub and spoke method where you have an HQ firewall or a main firewall which all the traffic is being routed through. And of course makes it a lot more simpler to use, since you do not need to have any more than one server at the HQ part, for example. For managed service providers, it is an easy platform. You can support and manage all your organizations, which would be your clients, from the same location. So you, as multi-service providers servicing and providing the network for your clients, are able to see all the status of all your clients in a single pane of glass. And then when you go on the client or an organization level, you are able to see all their sites and a bit more detail on the site health, how much bandwidth is being consumed, etc., and also where the sites are being located at. Then when you drill down into the site level, you are of course able to see in more detail how many clients are there online, how much PoE budget is being consumed, etc., what type of traffic is flowing through, etc., and is everything okay, and who are the clients consuming the most bandwidth, etc. And as basis, Nebula is a free platform, so it does not cost anything to use, basically. So just a little recap or a simplification on what does actually Nebula give you compared to the standard standalone network equipment. So if you would start a school from scratch, what you would need to do? Yes, you will need to purchase the equipment. That unfortunately will never go away. We still charge you for the equipment, and you probably charge your clients for them as well. You will need to install them, but the installation usually involves pre-configuration either back at your office, preparing the kit before the install, or it takes quite a lot of time to configure on site, and usually the network outage is longer as well when you are doing the configuration on site. You will need to get some data out of them, because of if something happens, you will need that data for finding out for the customer what went wrong and why, and of course for you to proactively fix something. You need secure access to the equipment, which a direct open HTTPS port from outside is not, in my opinion, so you would need to set up a VPN or an MPLS type network for secure access for each and every site. You would need to get that data that you are pulling from the site in a human readable format, and hopefully even get alerts from it. And usually it means that you need to set up some sort of an SNMP monitoring softwares. there are free softwares available, but usually they take quite a long time to configure, and there are softwares that cost quite a lot of money to buy, plus that they still take some time to configure. You need to store that data somewhere, so either you need an on-premise server or you need to buy a cloud service that does that for you. You need to keep up with your firmware updates, usually manually, and usually what happens that nobody actually does when the site is running. It's running, don't touch it if it isn't broken, right? Yeah, but you will miss a lot of new features and you will miss a lot of security patches, which can save you a lot of headache in the future. User and device management, when we are talking about schools, pretty much mandatory, since we really need to know who is doing what in the network and who is a teacher and who is a student, etc. So basically you would need to set up a local or a hosted radius or an AD server, or maybe even an external captive portal for users. And then what Nebula actually provides you. Yes, you still need to buy the devices. We do not provide them for you free of charge. You still need to install them, but as we spoke earlier, you basically do not need to do any local configuration or device-based configuration. Everything is coming from NCC, and the device installation is as quick as it can be. We pull all the necessary data from the devices securely and in human readable format, so you do not need to worry about that. Secure access to the locations is being provided for you. No need for a VPN network of your own. We provide a monitoring platform and the Nebula Control Center, where you can easily see on either or a general level or even drill down on a client level and see exactly what is happening at that network. Data storage, we provide up to a year's worth of logging data for you to store in the Nebula Control Center. We also provide an automated and schedulable firmware updates, and it is easy to maintain, and basically if you have a set date, it doesn't need any of your attention for the firmwares to be up to date. Of course, you will still need to manage your users and you will still need to manage your devices, but we do provide a built-in authentication server in the Nebula Control Center for you, and we also support the captive portal functions for guest access. And something that we really want to clarify is that only the management and monitoring traffic is being transmitted to Nebula Control Center. None of the standard internet traffic will be pushed through to our cloud platform. That simply would not make any sense, and it would be quite illegal to do so. We are hosted in AWS, so Amazon's cloud service, and as far as I know, it is the biggest cloud service provider in the world, and these small companies compared to sizes like NASA or Netflix are being hosted in the same platform as well, so we are in quite a big company and a trusted cloud platform. So then let's talk a bit about products. So Nebula Flex products, we basically have two types of products that you can use in the Nebula platform. We have Nebula dedicated products, which you can only use in the Nebula Control Center, and then we have Nebula Flex products, which you can use either in standalone mode or in Nebula mode. So Nebula Flex products basically, as simply as you register it into NCC, and it will start working as a Nebula product. Simple as that. Of course, it needs to be at the level firmware at the level that it actually supports Nebula control center. So if for some reason the device does not integrate to NCC, you maybe need to upgrade it, but most devices are already at that level. And if you for some reason choose to move it back to a standalone device, you simply remove it from NCC, and NCC will send a factory reset command to the device, and the device will do a factory reset and start working as a standalone device. So as simple as that. And yay, as this gentleman is really happy about, it does not cost you anything to integrate a standalone Nebula device to Nebula platform. There is no additional cost on the device integration to NCC. So it is just up to you and your choice. And you can do it as many times as you want. So value adding services that we have. As the base level Nebula Control Center is a free of charge service, and it's a free of charge platform which will never stop working for you. So no ongoing licenses that are required from Zyzel's side. But we do have a couple of add-on packs, and here are just a few examples what you get with these professional services and security packs. So let's start off with the professional services. So in June, we will release a new feature for our Wave 2 APs, which is called a wireless health. So the Wave 2 APs are able to scan the network around them and identify and create heat maps and identify possible sources of interference, and then helping you troubleshoot if there are issues with wireless networks, and of course optimizing the performance of the network from this data and maybe the locations of the APs as well. We give you, with the professional pack, we give you better visualization. So with the free version, you will get 7 days worth of logging in the NCC. With the professional pack, you will get a year's worth of information and logs out of the NCC. You will also gain status alerts, meaning emails and application push notifications if something goes wrong. Custom reporting, custom scheduling, and user audit and change logs, which are actually quite a handy feature if there are several people managing the networks. So you can easily see if some changes have been made, and possibly if they haven't been a good change, you are able to revert back to the old value because you see the old and the new value, and of course you see who has done this change and when. It will also give you an automated local network topology, so a network diagram, and doing the same with the VPN topology, including throughput information on the VPN tunnels, and you are able to follow up what sort of data is flowing through the, each and every VPN tunnel. It also gives you granular bandwidth control, so either a client or a device-based bandwidth management. So you are, for example, able to limit all the students into 5 megs and all the teachers into 50 megs, for example, but it's of course up to you. You are also able to set this per IP ranges, and you are also able to play around with priorities for these IP ranges. So for example, when the internet connection is being fully consumed, the teachers will still have some bandwidth left, and the bandwidth will be taken away from the lower priority student network. Synchronization between sites and templates, meaning that if you have multiple locations that are running the same configuration, you can just add them into a template. So if you have 100 schools running a similar configuration, you can push them all into the same template, and if they want to change a password or an SSID name or add something, you just do the change in the template and it will populate to all of those sites linked to that template. So once again, why do something 100 times to 100 sites when you can do it from one location, one template? Cloning settings, once again, ease of installation. So when creating more similar sites or same sites with same configuration, you can just clone the configuration from a previous site to the new site and maybe make 1 or 2 changes if needed. And then that's all the setting you need to actually do on that site. Once again, ease of installation. And backupping and restoring, well, always a good idea. You can back up site-based configuration or device-based configuration if you wish to, and create even multiple configurations that you can run on that site, for example, for summertime or wintertime or however you choose to. Basically have a ready backup for site configuration. Then a few words about the security services. So these are services provided on the gateway, so NSGs. So we support antivirus for preventing any bugs to flow through that gateway, content filtering for managing the browsing traffic within the network. So for example, we are able to ban Facebook easily or YouTube or whatever URL we wish. We are also able to ban per category, so we can, for example, ban all the malicious sites or whatever category we would choose to do. Application intelligence. So if we have an issues with streaming consuming too much bandwidth in Twitch, we can, for example, just ban Twitch or whatever application we choose to. Intrusion detection and prevention. So if we are under attack for some reason, we are able to identify and prevent that attack from happening. Nebula security services analytic tools. So we are going to have a nice visual representation what these services have actually done in our network. And it looks a bit like this. So for example, on an application based, we are able to easily see on what applications are being used inside the network, how much they are being used, and on what category they belong to, etc. And then act accordingly. So if we want to save on bandwidth, we might block something or prevent something from using, but then again, that is completely up to the configuration. URLs, same type of traffic, same type of category, and as said, we can, for example, block all the malware sites that have known malware in them for clients even accessing from, and hence creating a more secure network. Reporting from antivirus. So we are able to see what type of viruses have been going through. In this test picture or an example picture, we have downloaded 44 times of the ACAR test virus, which is a safe virus from an IP address 100.2.1.34, and we will easily see that it's been stopped by the firewall 100% of the times. Then a bit about the device portfolio that we have. We have a wide variety of devices for you to choose from, so you don't really need to use anything else if you don't really want to. From the gateways, from the smallest to the largest, from NSG 50 to NSG 300. Once we go up to the model, we go up to the performance, of course, as well. And since we are talking about schools, usually we probably would be using an NSG 200 or 300. And we in the Nordics do have quite fast ISP connections. Nebula gateways support up to 2 WAN connections for failover, for example. So you can have that primary WAN connection and, for example, an LTE connection as a backup. So you will not lose the ISP connection even if the primary connection goes down. On the switch side, we have the 2 new Flex series, the 1920 version 2s and the XGS 1930s. And the XGS means that it has 10 gig uplinks ports. The nice new features about these are the for example, the new PoE consumption LADs. So you do not need to log into the device or in NCC to see the device PoE consumption, and you can easily see how much of the device's PoE budget is being consumed already from the front panel. One of the nice switches, the new ones, is the new 8HP, which is a fanless unit, and it can be easily mounted on a desktop or something because it doesn't make any noise. And then we have the NSW series, which are the Nebula native switches, which can only work in Nebula mode. The NAP APs, which are the Nebula native APs, coming with 3 years of professional pack license. And a note from the previous slides and previous devices, all the NSG devices come with 1 year of professional pack and 1 year of security pack, and all the NSV switches come with 1 year of professional pack as well. All the Flex devices come with the free version. So from the base level up, the NAP 303 is a good AP for those high capacity areas like auditoriums, etc. From the NAP 102, that's maybe an office AP from 10 to 20, maybe 30 clients, depending on the bandwidth usage. And of course, the outdoor AP with external antennas. So you can put in either omnidirectional or directional or semi-directional antennas, whichever do you choose to use and which model do you want. Then the Flex series, the 1120 through version 2 and the Pro are hardware-wise same as the NAP 102 and 203. It's just the license that is different. The ACHD is a new Wave 2 model, so that will support the wireless health as well. And the 1302 is a wall plate model that is designed mostly for hospitality, but it can be easily cover a small office room, for example. And the good thing about it is that it has a managed switch. So if you have more or only one cabling available to that office space, and you still need a wireless AP in that room, plus you need a wired computer, maybe an IP telephone, you can use that as a managed switch as well. And it can also take 30 watts of PoE power in and push out 15 watts. So for example, for that IP phone, you do not need any extra PoE injectors inside or anything like that. So it's a really good multi-use AP. Then Nebula Flex Pro APs, which currently come with 3 years of professional pack license. The 5023 ACHD and the 6303 DS, and the S at the end means that it's a smart antenna AP. And once again, it is meant for the bigger installations where you really need to have the capacity for multiple clients or you have difficult environments. Then a couple of words about the smart antenna technology I briefly just mentioned. It is designed to increase capacity, so it is able to focus the antenna signal to each and every client, and gaining a better signal strength to each and every client, and getting better transmit speeds, of course, and increasing capacity by doing so. And since it is able to do a directional antenna patterns to each and every client, it can increase the coverage and reach clients that are further from the AP. And since it isn't shouting an omnidirectional antenna pattern, it will reduce a lot of interference that is giving out. And by concentrating the antenna signal, it will also use less power and saving electricity. So green, green, green. So what is smart antenna and how does it work? So on the left hand side we have a conventional omnidirectional antenna, meaning an AP that is broadcasting on each and every direction. Doesn't matter where the client is at that radius. Then on the right hand side we have the directional antenna, which is a concentrated signal to a short or in a long distance, but in a small area. So what smart antenna does is that it creates an antenna pattern for each and every device, and tries to also avoid an interference source, which in this example is a microwave, which is a huge source of interference on 2.4 gigs. So it will dedicate a antenna pattern for each and every client, and it is able to keep up. Even if the client is moving, it will constantly change the antenna pattern to suit where the client is located at any given time. And it can do this for each and every client that is connected to that AP. And it does not require any support from the AP itself, for the client itself, sorry, because it is based on simple measurements like signal strength, signal to noise ratios, throughput speeds, etc. So very good system, especially on bigger environments. So just an end summary on what we have learned today and why these devices are very suitable on the education vertical. So we have a flexible device range for the education vertical, meaning from the smallest school you can possibly imagine, the huge schools with huge auditoriums with hundreds and hundreds of clients in the area. We are able to do PoE scheduling, meaning saving on electricity on downtimes, and since schools are pretty much closed on evenings, weekends, summer holidays, winter holidays, this amounts to quite a big portion of the year that there is nobody inside the school using these devices. Smart antenna technology for the bigger areas, bigger classrooms, auditoriums, etc. So you can get away with actually a smaller amount of APs and creating less interference, making it a more robust system in that area. And of course, all our Nebula hardware has a lifetime warranty, or a limited lifetime warranty, which actually means the life cycle of the product plus 5 years. So even after the product is EOL, you still have 5 years of warranty. From the software side, we support the VPA2 enterprise authentication and also integration to the cloud hosted services, for example, Azure hosted AD servers. We are able to schedule SSIDs when we just want to shut down certain wireless networks. We have a good bandwidth management system available for preventing the bandwidth consumption that single client, single devices cannot consume too much bandwidth. We are able to do client steering, so none of the APs will get too overwhelmed with the client amount. And as traffic enforcement, we can do content filtering and application intelligence to limit what is actually being used at those locations. So now let's have a quick peek at a live site. Just a moment, I will log in and move the browser window so you can see it. Okay, so we have or had a good example. So this is a live site, a live school actually in Belgium. We have agreed with them that we are able to show this on our webinar, but we are hiding all the identifying client data. So unfortunately, you will not see any client names or anything that client names or client MAC addresses or anything that could identify the clients themselves or usernames or anything. It is a school environment that usually during the school days has hundreds of clients in, but apparently school day seems to be out and it has only 18 clients currently online. So if we go and see a little bit in the history of the clients that we are actually seeing, and we see, for example, during the past day, how many clients have been online. So we have had during this day in this location with 38 APs, we have had 908 different clients online. But for the online clients, as said, we are only showing the local data that you cannot identify any personal information or anything, and this is the AP's MAC address. So you can easily define what you want to see, for example, on the client level from here. And you can, for example, see all the signal strengths, all the TX and RX rate of the data, what is the capability of that device, what is the iOS of the device, etc. And you can go drill down to each and every client level and see the event logs of the client, for example, see the behavior of the clients, if there is something odd going on with roaming or association with authentication or anything. So you can drill into much more detail. And this site actually is a good example that you do not need to have a full Nebula environment. This site is running, yes, a full-size solution, but the switches and the gateway is an older model and they have just updated the APs. So you do not need to run a full Nebula solution. These Nebula devices are standard network devices and they work with other Sisal equipment, they work with other manufacturers equipment, applying to all standards. So if you are just upgrading a part of the network, that is fine as well. So sorry about the school day being out, so you could not see the full amount of APs or the clients that we usually have at that location, but apparently they are leaving school early today. Okay, yeah, so now we go into the Q&A session. And we have some questions. Will this webinar be recorded? Yes, it will be recorded and the recording will be made available for you after the webinar. Then the second question, we are used to the USG and VPN firewalls. Do we have the exact same control if we choose a Nebula firewall instead? No, you do not. You will manage the device from the Nebula control center rather from the local GUI of the device, the local web GUI of the device. You are able to go look in yourself in the Nebula Control Center by just going to nebula.zyzel.com. I will just show you, just a moment. So when you are going to nebula.zyzel.com, you can just go get started, and then you will see the demo credentials on the screen, and you will just you can just log in and view the test and demo sites yourselves. So what can you do and where can you do it? And of course, after the webinar, I am happy to help you out with emails or email or a Skype call or whatever. My email is jukka@zyzel.fi. GS2210 isn't supported or planned to be. No, GS2210 is not supported, and it is currently not in the plans as well. But in the fall, we will launch a follow-up model on the, it will be GS2220, if I remember correctly, which will support Nebula. Is it needed to get one controller and just AP per network, or does every location require a connector? No, you do not need an on-site controller. NCC is the wireless controller, and so it is being hosted in the cloud. And does every location need a connector? You do not need any connectors to the location. Each and every device individually is able to connect to NCC and be managed that way. So you can create a Nebula environment with just a single Nebula device, being it an AP or a gateway or a switch. You don't need any extra equipment on the site. They just need internet connection, basically. So as far as of now, there is no other questions, but I will keep the webinar running for a couple of minutes. If there is some more questions, if there isn't, or if something comes to mind afterwards, as said, my email is jukka@zyzel.fi. So feel free to contact me afterwards. Otherwise, if there isn't any something. We had a customer who was unfortunately that their firewall just died. They didn't have any configuration files for it. If they had a Nebula firewall, it would just registering a new one and everything would work correct. Answer is simply that correct. You just register that firewall to that site and it will download the configuration for that site and start working, since all the configuration and all the backups are hosted in the NCC. So no local configuration files or no local configuration backup is needed. So that was actually a really good selling point for it as well. Thank you, Dennis. Well, thank you for attending, and I will shut down the webinar, and you have my contact details if there is any questions. And with the sales part, you are able to connect the local sales person of Zyzel. Got a couple of questions. Are there any new roadmap for new features? Yes, but that is still internal documentation, so unfortunately I cannot reveal or show roadmaps. Can CNA work with Nebula? I will have to check that, but as basis, CNA is an SNMP monitoring device or a platform for Zyzel devices. So I'm fairly certain that it will, but please check the datasheet for supported devices of CNA for a definitive answer. Okay, thank you all that are still there, and I will close the webinar, and thank you again for attending, and hope you got something out of this. Thank you, and bye-bye.